Yo, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Doing my mental Monday on a Monday. What a tremendous life. So, I was listening to a podcast Thursday night. My friend Brian Snyder, coach in Nebraska, he recommended it to me. And it was freaking awesome. And it was Andrew Huberman and, oh man, I don't remember that guy's name. Brian posted in the comments who was the other guy in the podcast. It was Andrew Huberman with the guest on the Huberman Lab podcast. Anyway, one of the things they started talking about was what they called the mentorship dilemma. And I will describe it, and I'm going to kind of talk about it a little bit, but really, I have seen what they're describing as a mentorship dilemma within individual athletes. So the mentorship dilemma was talking about a mentor working with a student, but I think the exact same thing happens within individuals. So what the mentorship dilemma essentially described was if a mentor gives too much criticism or feedback, the participant, right, because this could be a student or an athlete or whatever, gets too negative and they think, oh man, the mentor doesn't like me because they're giving me too much negative feedback. But on the flip side of that, if you're not giving them enough feedback, you're not properly feeding their ability to get better because you're not acknowledging mistakes, faults, et cetera, that they may be making, right? So it's like, okay, where do we find the balance here? And now, so where I've seen this in individual athletes, and this is where I'm going to go with it, they described the mentorship dilemma, and I said, I think I've had that exact thought about individual athletes. So athletes, here's the deal. I've seen on one side, and listen, I have a book coming out about balance. It's actually called Extreme Balance. The balance between multiple mindsets. So here's the balance. On the one side, what we have is someone who has very high self-esteem. That's great. I love it. Okay? But if they have very high self-esteem, they don't want to acknowledge all of their faults. Because if they acknowledge their faults, and this is kind of like a fixed mindset type view, if they acknowledge their faults, then they will have to have a more pessimistic view of themselves. And they don't want to do that. So they try to ignore their faults, but because they're ignoring their faults, it doesn't lead to as good of an outcome as possible if they had addressed whatever faults they had, right? So if you do want to say, oh, I really don't have bad conditioning, and your conditioning is bad, and you won't address it because you're not willing to acknowledge that's an issue, or you can't finish your single legs, you can't get off bottom, et cetera, whatever these things are that you're refusing to address because you think it's a negative reflection on yourself, it's going to hurt you. Because in wrestling, there is truth. We have to compete, and we see what the truth is. Okay, now on the other side of that, you have kids who are almost, what I'll say is almost all too willing to acknowledge every single mistake they make. Okay, that's good. It's positive, right? But generally speaking, those kids are more pessimistic about their long-term outcome, right? So they think, oh man, I make all these mistakes. I'm just not that good. I can never be that good. I can never be that person. I can never be the guy, right? So the perfect recipe is to take one side of each one of these, right? Find the balance, find the strong point here and find the strong point over here. Find the strong point on both sides. So the strong point would be have a high self-esteem with the understanding that if you put in enough work and you put enough time, you can accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish, right? And then on the other side, this exact same thing, but maybe slightly different, is also the Stockdale paradox in Good to Great, the book. So on the other side, you're willing to acknowledge every fault you have. You're willing to acknowledge, and then where you can fix them, you're going to fix them. Okay? So, if it's, I need to finish my single leg. I need to be able to stop a high crotch. Pick whatever it is you need to fix and fix it. Then the other thing about wrestling is very egalitarian in the sense that anyone can win. Okay? Anyone with any skill set can win. And so for me, I am very slow twitch. I can wrestle really, really hard for a long period of time, but I can't do very many things very fast. Okay? It's just me as a coach try to do this to people try to get people to acknowledge what their strengths and what their weaknesses are, and then we play to their strengths. right? So if I tried wrestling a fast guy, I'm not going to have a lot of success. So I don't try wrestling a fast guy. I try to figure out what wrestling style is going to most well fit my biggest strengths. Okay? And that's what everyone can do. What wrestling style can best fit your biggest strengths? Okay? So where we can eliminate problems, we eliminate problems. Where we can fix weaknesses, we fix weaknesses. But there are some things that are, I want to say they're static, right? They are significantly harder to change, but you can mitigate them by playing to your strengths. If you're a fast guy, play to your speed. But they're right, there's a specific style you're going to have to figure out how to do that, okay? But if you're a sprinter, right, so if a guy runs a 100-meter dash at an elite level, I can promise you they're not running 1,600 at an elite level. And vice versa, the 1,600 who's world class is not running the 100-meter dash at a world class level. Those two things. So if the miler wants to try to sprint like the sprinter, it will be ineffective. If the sprinter wants to run at pace like the miler, it will also be ineffective. Okay. So ideally through all this, we're going to keep high self-esteem, and we're going to acknowledge the fact that we put enough time and effort, we can accomplish something. And on the other side, we're going to acknowledge our faults, and we're going to try to fix them where we can and work around them where we can't. Okay. So I've seen both those personality types. Those things go together. So on the one side, high self-esteem, we won't acknowledge faults. On the other side, lower self-esteem, more pessimistic, we'll acknowledge faults. So both those got one of two parts right. So why don't we just take the best from both sides, have a high self-esteem with an acknowledgement that we can accomplish great things, and be willing to acknowledge whatever faults we have. That's the best. We take the best of both worlds. Oh my God, how smart are we figuring this thing out? Okay, that's all I got for my Mental Monday. Like I said, I do have a book about balance coming out. I think it's late in the summer maybe. It's going to be freaking awesome. It's an idea I've had for, 10, 15 years now, and we're finally going to get to it. So I'm out here. Peace. Have a great day.